to Scrollin', episode number 79. I'm Ket. Joining me, as usual, the Chief of Grief himself, Davius Starjumper. What's going on, man?
Not much.
I guess that's all we have to say then.
Hey,
Goodbye.
that's it. There we go.
Thanks for joining in.
Good. Chief of Grief.
We are going to talk about High Isle. It's been a couple of weeks since it came out on PC. I think it just came out on consoles yesterday. We've had a couple of weeks to get into it. Have you started the story yet, Davies, or are you just fully absorbed with the card game?
I'm a little embarrassed to say I have yet to even take the first quest.
You haven't even accepted.
I haven't even accepted. I'm not even entirely sure where you started.
You can't tear yourself away from that card game.
I'm over here buting.
Well, welcome to Butin.
Welcome to Butin. Get to scooting.
Tales of Tributin. That's what
Tales
that's.
Tributin.
Well, I actually just finished the story yesterday.
Wow. Okay.
So I'm totally done. I think.
When's the last time that you finished a story before me? It's got to be. I think Somerset was the last time that you finished a story before me.
Probably so. I was super into Somerset, dude. Don't listen. We
I'm
can't
sorry.
start talking about Somerset.
I'm sorry. You had a positive vibe.
Because Somerset was my favorite expansion of all time, and this one is the opposite of that.
Oh. Somerset was your safe haven. That was it.
Ah, man, I always just think of Somerset like, man, remember Somerset?
You remember
life was better then.
People think you're joking right now, but Ket does ask me that. We'll be in the middle of a BGQ, and we'll be sitting there, like 30 seconds of silence, and Ket will just go, "Hey, you remember Somerset?"
Remember how good life was back then? Which Davies has a perfect life now, so he's like, I don't follow. I did finish the story yesterday. It was fun. I think Zos always does a pretty good job of making interesting characters and writing good stories and all that kind of stuff. But this go around, that's kind of the thing that they've been marketing, like with all their live streams and everything else. They've really been kind of pushing the idea that the writing and the story and all of that is really where we're going to find the value in this expansion, right? So I've been looking for that value, and just it's good, it's fun, but it's just kind of the same as always, though. It's like it's not anything above and beyond what we've seen in previous expansions. And going back to Somerset, I mean, Somerset was like, I couldn't wait to see what happened next. It was like a page turner, like reading a book. Like I had to get to the end. It was so exciting, like just delighted around every corner. I never really had moments like that with this one. I don't want to taint your experience. You haven't done the story yet, so
it does concern me, and just in the sense that is what that's kind of what they sold it as. This is going to be. We didn't set those expectations for them. They're the ones that set the expectations. This one's going to be next level, story-wise. And I've heard that from you from the throughout it. We've talked and conversed as you've gone through the story, and you had said at every part of it that it's good and it's the same level, but you wouldn't say it's next level. And so,
it's not good enough to like compensate for the fact that I know I'm a broken record, but.
That's
no new class, no new skill line, and I was hoping, not necessarily expecting, but I was hoping that the writing and the story and the characters and all of that would compensate for the fact that we're not getting that cool stuff that I was wanting, and like I said, it's not that it's bad, it's just kind of more of the same. I did enjoy it, but I don't know if it was worth $40. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, $40 is, we'll talk about it here in a minute, but I got my 2 cents on where that $40 is.
Yeah. I mean, it's in the card game, and it's in 100%. The Oakensoul mythic item is really kind of, that's what you're paying for. Yeah. But it was cool. I mean, I thought the main NPC that you talked to throughout the quest, Lady Arabelle, I liked her. I like that character. I think she's new. I don't remember seeing her before. And she was really cool. She's kind of like this noble Breton woman. She's very kind of prim and proper, but very like warm, and she had a cool personality. I enjoyed her, and I hope we see her again. And she was probably the highlight, I think, of the whole like questing experience. Like I always kind of looked forward to going back and talking with her and kind of recapping what's going on and all that. I also thought that the main city, Gonfalon Bay, very cool.
It's a good looking city.
I've been pretty critical of the zone itself. I've said in previous episodes it's pretty bland. I really don't find the zone to be very exciting. But the main city is a very strong exception to that. The city is actually very cool.
I like how big it seems. Like it really does seem like a massive, big, large city.
It's very big, and I think they make it seem even bigger with all the kind of stairways, and there's all these kind of like back alleyways you can get lost in, and archways and tunnels, and it's just neat kind of navigating around the city. I do enjoy the city quite a bit. The zone itself, I have not really come around in my opinion of the overall zone. I do think it's kind of bland. I'm not into the sunflowers. Honestly,
you are anti-sunflower. You were that on day one. I'm a fan of the sunflowers. I like it. I think it's cool. The sunlight hits them, and it's pretty neat looking.
I think the sunflowers, I feel like the designers, whoever designed the zone came to the same conclusion that I did, which was, this zone looks pretty boring. And then they just plastered sunflowers everywhere to kind of spice it up. It just seemed like a I don't know, a half-hearted way to try to spice it up. GrizzlyCon says he really enjoys the aesthetics of High Isle. So there you go. Different opinions, different strokes.
I'll say this. I like High Isle more than I like the Deadlands, where it's just, Lands of Dead, where it's just it's dark and nothing there, It was kind of...
There are parts of High Isle that I really like. Actually, when you go north up to the Aminos Island, like the prison island, that kind of big island area that's just north of the main zone, I actually really like that area quite a bit. It looks quite a bit different. It's kind of like a dense jungle, like an island paradise kind of kind of vibe going on there. So I really like that. I also thought like a lot of the delves and public dungeons were pretty cool. Like especially some of the delves, let's like, you're not going into a cave underground. You like get on a boat and it takes you to an island, and that whole island is the delve.
That's a cool idea. That actually kind of reminds me of Somerset. I feel like that's kind of a Somerset thing.
Yeah, there are some like that there. So there are aspects that I really do enjoy, and I thought most of the world bosses are actually really, really cool. Like probably some of the best looking parts of the zone were like these arena areas where you fight these world bosses, and some of them you kind of have to go through a doorway, and then you get there and it opens up into this kind of really beautiful grotto with like a waterfall and just like a really cool stage that's being set there. And I like that the bosses, to me, they seem like just the right kind of difficulty. I soloed most of them, and they were just like just right for me. And I'm by no means a PvE god, I promise you. But I was able, like one of them I think I had to try twice because I had to learn a mechanic. But most of them I was able to solo. There was one that there were some other people around. But I liked the world bosses. I thought they were pretty cool. But yeah, I was hoping for more from the story. Not that I didn't enjoy it. I did enjoy it, but it did not make up for the fact that there's no new class, no new skill line, really nothing that interests me.
One thing that like I said, I haven't done any of the story or anything, but one thing I do have to mention is that I have to be honest, I am less than impressed with the volcanic vents. I'm with you. There's just not much there for me. Especially when we, anchors, anybody who's been playing this game for a long time can remember the first time you hear that siren and the anchor, and it's this cool experience. And
man.
They over time you get pretty used to it, but it's still, even now, to this day when I hear that siren, I still think, oh, that's cool. Like, I remember the first time I heard that, it was like crazy.
I remember the first time I saw a dark anchor. Yeah. I stayed away the first time. I was like, oh, I'm not ready terrifying. For that. Yeah, I'm not going to go over there. I'll wait till I'm leveled up more. I didn't know what it was.
Yeah, and then, the dragons were really unbelievable. And then I can't remember what it was in the Western Skyrim. I can't remember what they're called. But the storm... and so
Harrow Storms,
Harrow Storm was just wild. There's all this crazy
stuff.
Those
are cool.
And so I really feel like it's been a lot of just really wild, kind of over the top, like this is chaos. And maybe they were trying to tone it down a little bit, but I just feel like the volcanic vents were, it's kind of like, oh, okay, well, all right. I was just very, I don't know. It's just
they were not dazzling. Quick side note here. King Nar just put a screenshot in the chat here. A 51-5 kill count in a battleground with his Oakensoul Templar. Nerf King Nar. Zoss.
Oh, goodness.
Grizzly says Harrow Storms and Dragons are the best. Abyssal Geysers sucked. Yeah, honestly, I feel like the volcanic vents are kind of like the Abyssal Geysers. Kind of like a reskin of that same sort of deal.
Yeah.
So anyway, I did do the trial. King, was it you that invited me to the trial? I think it was King that invited me to the trial. We did a normal run. And it was pretty fun. We did it on normal, so I wasn't really paying super close attention to the mechanics and stuff. We just kind of blasted through the bosses. But King was a great leader. He took us through it all and told us, what to do and how to get through it. And it reminded me quite a bit of the Blackheart Haven dungeon. Kind of had that pirate swashbuckler kind of vibe.
Did it look good?
It looked really cool. There were like really cool parts where like you're running through all this ship wreckage. It's like a pirate ship or something crashed, and you're just kind of running through all the debris and stuff like that. And it overall kind of had a strangely like a lighthearted feel to it. It's like, I don't know, it's like everyone's having fun in there. Even the bad guys are like, yeah, let's fight. So I did enjoy that. Thanks for the invite, King. That was fun. Davis, tell us about Tales of Tribute, man. What are your thoughts on the card game?
Oh, Butin.
welcome to Butin.
So I'm a fan of the game. I have to say that I've got some, I like some things about it, and then I struggle with some things about it. I do very much like the game. I'm very, very impressed with the depth of it. I think it's very deep, a lot of strategy. It's not a game that you're going to learn and like you play it 2-3 times and then you just know it. I probably have I'd say probably 50-ish games in, and I'm still changing strategies up. And part of the game is you change your strategy up based on what you're seeing and what's available, what decks are in the game, and then what's kind of available to purchase. So extremely impressed with the depth of it. I think the tricky part for me is like you said, this is a $40 expansion, and this is a full-on, I fully believe that even now more than ever, and I've said this in the past, is that this is where the resources went. This is a full-on, fully fledged out, really in-depth strategy card game. And very much I can see them adding decks in the future. They're going to build on this. I think my struggle is that, and I don't really mean this as a negative, but it's its full-on game. We've talked about this. It's a game inside a game, but it kind of throws me off on, like, it feels like an app. It feels like you are in a card game app on your phone. Like, this is a totally separate game and you're in an app, and then the fact that
the screen totally changes. You're not in ESO anymore.
Yeah, and it kind of throws me off, and I think that's kind of a tricky part for me too, is because, like you said, that's a big chunk of the expansion, and I tell you right now that app card games are not $40. Yeah. That's not the usually running price. So I really like the card game. I really like the strategy, and I've had a lot of fun. It's kept me from even starting the quest, because I'm either logging on to do BGs or I'm logging on to play the card game. But I don't know. I don't know about the longevity of it. It's a good kind of 15-minute time, but I struggle with the fact that when I queue up for a card game, that I can't queue up for a BG. Like, I really wanted the card game to kill time in between BG matches or PvP, and it's you kind of have to choose one or the other, and so
and the games are too long. Like, they last too long for that. Like, you would get interrupted in the middle of a match.
Exactly.
GrizzlyCon in the chat, he's saying he's really into the card game, and he would like to see it on a tablet or a phone that connects with the game to play it that way.
Yeah,
I would not be surprised if that happens at some point in the future.
I could very much see that, because it even has a and I think it looks really well. I'm not knocking the look of it, but it even has an app look. Like, when you're in the card game, you feel like you're on a phone operating system, I guess is what I would say.
Yeah. There are a lot of people who are into the card game and they like it. I have not made it through the tutorial. Like, you have to play those few NPCs at the beginning to kind of get all the way through it. I have not made it to the end of that at all. Like, I give up halfway through because I don't understand the game. I don't know how it works. I don't want to watch a YouTube video to learn how to do it. I feel like the game should be teaching me how to play it. The tutorial is very bad, Grizzly says. Yeah. I do agree.
I would say to really, until you really kind of start figuring out what's going on, and I mean like just the very minimum basics where you kind of realize, all right, this is what's going on, this is what I'm doing with the turn, and here's the win and loss conditions. You really got to get, I would say, probably 10 complete games in before you really kind of get an idea of direction. And that's even before you start getting strategy and understanding the deck building part of, okay.
I'll never make it to that point. I just get 5 minutes max, and I'm just like so bored. Like, I can't, I just got to queue up for a BG. Like, I'm having like critical levels of unfun right now. Then I get into a BG, I'm having a great time again, of course.
Yeah.
That's Tales of Tribute. The companions. Have you ran into either of the companions yet?
I have not.
So I've unlocked both of them, and
you're sold on companions now, right? This is what I'm getting.
It's not like I'm all into companions, but I actually do enjoy these companions more than I thought I would. Grizzly says Ember is the best. I do agree, Grizzly. Ember is the best companion. Ember is the Khajiit. Dude, she is hilarious, man. She's so cool. She is like this bright, bubbly, cheerful, just always happy sort of Khajiit lady, but she's also like a murderous psycho at the same time, it just cracks me up that she's all like cheerful and just having a great time and like, all right, let's kill these guys. She's just like, it's pretty fun. I enjoy that quite a bit. The voice actress is really cool too. I like her lines and the way she delivers them, and the way her voice sounds is cool. And
so would
I
you
like
say
Ember quite a bit.
That they've improved, like new companions over original companions, that they have kind of taken it up a notch, like they've improved on it?
I mean, it's the same kind of thing, but I like the personalities of these more than the first batch, I would say.
Okay.
Personally. Isabel is the other one. She's a Breton lady, and a lot of people compare her to Bastion, saying that they're very similar. Really, the only similarity I find between the two is that they're both very goody-goody. That's kind of
gotcha.
Both their thing. But Isabel, to me, seems a lot more personable and has a much more kind of warm personality. I enjoy her company more than Bastion's, personally.
Okay.
But Ember's where it's at. Gotta get on Ember. And both of their quests, I enjoyed the quest for both of them quite a bit, just to unlock them, the initial quest.
Is it another kind of like... I don't know. The first one kind of seemed like a public dungeon style.
No, I think both of them were just kind of like open world side quests. I actually didn't even realize they were companions until I finished the quest. I just thought it was just some random side quest, and then once it was over, it's like, okay, I'm gonna keep following you around now. I'm like, oh, okay, cool, thanks.
Interesting. Okay.
Crimson says she's still mad they didn't add a male companion. I've seen that complaint quite a bit, actually, on the forums and stuff. People are like, we need more male companions. We have 1 male companion, 3 females. I actually am pretty, I don't know, that kind of takes me by surprise that there's like that much of an outcry about that. But, yeah, we need some more dudes. Anyway, I don't know if I have much more to say about the expansion. My kind of final judgment, not worth $40. I think, we do this podcast and we're just kind of invested in ESO already, so it's just a foregone conclusion that I'm going to buy every expansion,
Yeah.
But otherwise, I would say just wait till it gets added to ESO Plus next year. You're not missing a whole lot.
It kind of hurts. It kind of hurts to say that, right? I mean, we are at the point, obviously, where we're gonna buy the expansion. Like, it's just gonna happen. We're gonna get the expansion to move along. But I agree with you. $40 is the cost of an entire game. Hours of gameplay. There's several good games out there for $40, and this increase in content seems a little. I don't know. It seems like a little dependent on the me and you type of player. Like, well, they're going to get it anyways, so this is how much we charge usually.
Well, The one kind of caveat I would say is if you want to get in on this Broakensoul action.
Yeah, there you go. Do you wanna be a little OP for a little while? There you go.
Yeah, because if you want to get in on the OP mythic, then go ahead and buy the expansion because it will be nerfed in a year's time. Guaranteed. By the time the next expansion comes out, it absolutely will be nerfed.
I kind of wonder if it'll make it a year at this point. I really do.
We'll talk about it here in a minute. I think it'll kind of get the Malakath treatment. We'll get a full year of this thing being absolutely busted. And then when the new expansion comes out with a new batch of mythics, they'll nerf it to make the new ones seem more enticing. I think that's kind of the business plan there. That's what it seems like. But maybe not. We'll see. And I'm not mad about Oakensoul. It's busted. It's totally busted. But
yeah,
I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, honestly. We'll get into it here in a minute. Grizzly says they need to add a battle spirit condition. I've seen some other people make that that recommendation as well. I think I have another idea of what I would like to see, but there's no telling how it's going to end up. Okay, that's enough about High Isle. Bottom line, unless you just want to get in on the OP Mythic, just wait until it gets added to ESO Plus.
Yeah.
Let's move on. Let's talk about some PvP. What do you say, Davey? Does PvP sound good?
Let's do it. Let's talk about it.
All right. So the meta has shifted a bit. I think there's some stuff to get into. I've been playing a ton of BGs. I think I have a kind of a good idea of how things are shaping up in the meta. It's still a lot of Dark Convergence, a whole lot of Dark Convergence, Rush of Agony, Plague Break. Those basically have been defining the meta for going on a year now, and they're still very, very present. Necro bombs everywhere.
Oh man, it's kind of gotten to the point where if you see Necros on the other team, you're almost surprised if there's not some bombing going on.
Well, and like the Sweaties, that's the only way anyone dies. That's the only way to get kills. Like healing, that's another thing that's defining the meta right now. Is healing is just outrageous. It is. Healing is way, way, way too strong. We talked about that on the last episode, so we don't have to rehash all of that. But healing is outrageous, and I think that's a big reason why Plague Break and Dark Convergence are still so popular, because in a lot of matches, you're not going to get any kills otherwise. It's just how it is. So they're still around. I hope, those Dark Convergence and Plague Break were introduced Q3 of last year, so I'm hoping Q3 of this year, maybe that's when they'll finally get nerfed and make room for some other new busted stuff.
Give us new busted.
Yeah. Dark Convergence in particular, man, I'm so sick of it. I'm so sick of it. Plague Break, I really don't even care about Plague Break. No big deal.
Plague Break actually doesn't bother me as much. Dark Convergence, we've talked about this. Don't be messing with my movement. All right.
Yeah, and especially with Rush of Agony. I mean, we've ranted about it before, but Rush of Agony is the one where you use a gap closer, and then it pulls anyone in the area in, and then it does not apply CC immunity. Makes me furious. And a lot of people will use that and Dark Convergence on the same build, right? So Rush of Agony pulls you in. You don't have CC immunity, so you try to get away. Dark Convergence pulls you right back in, and the whole time there's all this AoE damage just slamming down on you, and
there's a Necro involved in there. The Necro ult's going off.
Yes. And the two-handed ability Stampede procs both of those. Stampede's a gap closer, so it procs Rush of Agony, and it puts an AoE on the ground, so it procs Dark Convergence. So you push that one button, both sets get procced, and you can just ruin people's day with that combo there. I hate it. I really hate it.
It's not good. Not good.
Before we kind of move further, I want to just kind of make a little disclaimer here. I've seen a lot of discussion about whether or not like the terminology of like a Magicka build or a Stamina build is still valid, or is everything just a hybrid, or is there a such thing as a Stam Sork and a Mag Sork, or is it just Sork? And I think where I stand on it is those terms are still useful. Like, to me, there is still a difference between a Stam Sork and a Mag Sork. It might be kind of difficult to tell the difference when you're just looking at what weapons and what abilities they're using, but if you actually look at the build and see like where their attributes are allocated, what their recoveries are, what kind of armor they're wearing, all that stuff, there are differences, right? And if you're kind of leaning in the stamina direction, you have different options available to you than if you were leaning in the magicka direction, right? Your defensive style is going to be a lot different. Your play style is going to be different. So to me, those labels are still applicable. So I'm going to keep using them.
Yeah. There's a little bit more gray area. To me, weapons are still big on it. What weapon are you starting with? And that kind of that's a big one for me. And even if it's a hybridish build, if it's a bow build, it's gonna be a stamina build.
That's even kind of blurry though. Like there's a lot of magicka builds using like dual wield, for example. Like I think Kingnar was talking about on his MagPlar. I think he's using dual wield. Correct me if I'm wrong, King.
It definitely. I feel that the hybrid definitely opened the doors for magicka builds to throw stamina weapons on there. It's a little bit more. You can make it work a lot easier now, for sure.
Yeah. So it can be difficult to tell, like, is this a stamina build? Is this a magicka build? Just by looking at them. But I think there is a difference kind of under the hood. There are differences there. So that out of the way, let's talk a little bit about this Oakensoul mythic ring. Let me clear my throat here.
Are you prepped?
I think so. Man, we have some things to say about this, or I do at least. So, Oakensoul, or as the PvP community has been referring to it, Broakensoul. So, is it broken? I think this is something I've been following on the forums quite a bit, people talking about this thing. This is the hot thing that everyone's talking about. Is it actually broken, or is it a situation where, well, you're giving up your whole back bar, so it has to be super powerful to compensate for that because you're giving up so much? So I kind of want to dig into that and let's see, like, are you giving up more than you're getting? I think, long story short, I'll just kind of give you a spoiler right now. I think you're getting way more than what you're giving up.
Absolutely.
So first of all, I think just jumping into a battleground, you can feel it right away. The meta feels kind of like the old Malakath meta. You remember like the old 25% Malakath? If someone was wearing it and they started attacking you, you knew they were wearing Malakath right away.
Oh, there's a Malakath.
That's got to be Malakath because that freaking hurts. It's a very similar situation here. You know when somebody's using Oakensoul. It obviously gives you a bunch of really great buffs, right? You got your major armor buff, your major damage buff, your major crit buff. You also have major berserk, major force, major courage, major protection, major heroism, and then you have your 3 minor recovery buffs: endurance, intellect, and fortitude. Right?
Feel free to take a drink as you finish the buff list.
Okay, I need to take a break. But you can't bar swap, right? That's the whole thing. You're stuck on one bar the whole time. So what are you giving up? You're giving up 5 bar slots plus an ultimate. Right? Yep. So one of those bar slots is going to be your armor buff. You don't need that because you're getting that from Oakensoul, right? You might be using something that's giving you your major damage buff or your major crit buff. You don't need either of those. Oakensoul's giving you that. Maybe you're using something that gives you some kind of recovery buff, like siphoning attacks, the Nightblade skill, or the Warden's Netch, or something like that. You don't really need those because you're getting the minor recovery buffs from Oakensoul, and there's also a hidden recovery buff because you're not spending any resources to keep your buffs active, right? Since they're active at all times with this mythic, you're never spending magicka or stamina ever to activate your buffs.
Which might be the best recovery buff of all of them.
Yeah, it's not in the description of the item, but that's a major... I mean, you spend quite a lot of resources just keeping your buffs active. So there's like 3 or 4 bar slots that are just, you don't need them. You already have those things in this item. Even the ultimate, like your back bar ultimate, you're giving that up. But think about like the Warden's Permafrost. That gives you major protection. Oakensoul gives you major protection at all times. Mm-hmm. And the Warhorn ultimate gives you major force. Oakensoul gives you major force at all times. So it's kind of like you have 2 ultimates running all the time with this thing. So you're not really even giving that up. Plus your major berserk, plus your major courage, major heroism. You're getting so much more than what you're giving up with that back bar. Not to mention, it's simplifying your play style. You only have that one bar. There's only 5 skills to choose from, and you're not keeping up with any buff timers or anything like that. So the only abilities you have slotted are 100% situational. You just use them when you need them. That's it.
Yeah.
So the playstyle is just really, really simple. It's a lot easier to just make the right decision in the moment. You know, those snap, quick decisions in the heat of the moment. You're much less likely to make a mistake because there's less to choose from.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think that's kind of the breakdown. You know, really, like.
Yeah, you said it perfect. I that's exactly my exact thoughts on this item. Is that they looked at it and said, "All right, here's this great item. The negative is we're going to take away a back bar." But in reality, the negative that they added to the item ended up being a buff. When you take away the back bar, it actually ends up being as a buff. And so it's this great item with all these buffs, and the negative is actually a positive. And so I think that's kind of the OP part to this item.
Yeah, so at the end of it all, I think what you're really sacrificing is maybe like 2 flex spots. You know, and you can kind of do without those. It turns out it's really easy to make a single bar build when you have basically every buff in the game already. You know, basically everyone can use this thing. So, is it Broakensoul? Yes, it is. It is broken. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I had fun with Malakath when it was broken.
Yeah.
You know, I got a 61-0 kill count one time. That was fun, you know.
Mm-hmm. They're fun to have those.
Yeah, you know, we can have fun with it. It's cool. But it totally is busted. It is OP. So that's where I'm at on it. You're definitely getting more than what you're giving up. Now, it will be nerfed. Rest assured, dear listeners, it will be nerfed. It may be a while. It might be a full year from now before it happens, but it's going to happen. The question is, how is it going to happen? Grizzly made the comment earlier that maybe there should be some battle spirit condition when you're in PvP. Maybe certain buffs are inactive or something like that. My idea for the way it should be nerfed, here's my, Zos, if you're listening, here's my suggestion.
Listen up, Zos.
Listen up, Zos. Those core buffs, your major armor buff, your major damage buff, your major crit buff, keep those major. Everything else becomes minor. So minor berserk, minor force, minor courage, minor heroism, minor protection, and of course keep the minor recovery buffs as well. I think in that case, you still have a really awesome mythic item with really good buff coverage. Like the whole idea, I think, of this item is you're giving up that back bar, and so you want to be compensated for all the stuff that like a normal build would have in their build. Well, a normal build has the minor versions of these buffs, right?
Yes.
And really they're only going to have maybe like 2 of those, right? Mm-hmm. Like maybe they have minor force and minor berserk, and that's it. So you're actually going to have like all of those, like berserk, force, courage, heroism, protection, in exchange for giving up your back bar. Mm-hmm. So I think that would still be very, very good. It wouldn't be totally busted broken, and it would actually be better for group situations, right? Because a group's going to be providing the major version of those buffs a lot of the time, like in a trial group or something like that, and then that's going to stack with the minor versions of those buffs that you'd be getting from the mythic here. So in a group setting, it would actually even be better that way. But even solo, I think it would still be an excellent item.
We've talked about this and talked about your change, and I would 100% like that change and would still use the item with that change.
Yeah.
You know, the thing that really put it into perspective for me is we were talking about Oakensoul and all the buffs. We were going through the list, and you know, I was telling you, I was like, man, you know, I might just throw that on my StamDK's ultimate build. Like, that would kind of make sense. And I was like, well, he's already got Champion of the Hist. You know, he's getting heroism. And you went, no. That's giving him, that 5-piece is just giving him minor heroism. This is major. And it like, that was really what put it in perspective, where I was like, oh my gosh, that not only, that's just one of the major buffs. It gives all of the other things. And it's still tremendously better, massively better than the 5-piece I have on there. So it's kind of, that's really put it in perspective for me. It's like, oh wow, I absolutely should throw that on my StamDK.
Oh, yeah, totally. King Nar, we're going to talk about his DK here in a minute that's using Oakensoul. DKs are in particular doing extremely well with Oakensoul. I think if they were to nerf it, like if they were to do what I'm talking about here and turn all that stuff into minor, sometimes when they nerf something, they'll add a little something extra to kind of compensate for that nerf. If they were to do that, I think it would be really nice if they added minor expedition to it. So you have all that stuff plus minor expedition. That would just be like chef's kiss, like perfect item in that case. So there you go, Zos. You're welcome.
Problem solved. Brought to you scrolling.
Make the check out the Scrolling podcast. So not nearly as many werewolves as I was expecting. I was expecting with Oakensoul we were going to see a lot of werewolves running around, and I think we've seen slightly more werewolves than usual, but it's certainly not like dominating the meta the way I was expecting. It's really Dragon Knights. And I think Dragon Knights and Nightblades are the two that are really standing out to me that are benefiting the most from Oakensoul. DKs, man, they are just brutal with this thing. Shout out to King Nar in the chat. He shared his DK Oakensoul build with me. Correct me if I get any of this wrong, King. He's using the Plague Break set, 2 pieces Bloodspawn, 3 pieces Potentates, and then his weapons are using the Decisive trait. So it's a lot of ultimate regen.
I love to see the Decisive trait out there.
Yeah. So it's a lot of ultimate regen, right? You're getting ultimate from Bloodspawn, you're getting an ultimate cost reduction from Potentates, and then you have the Decisive trait with your ultimate regen, plus the major heroism with Oakensoul. I think he said he had like 6k weapon damage, which is pretty good. But here's the thing, with all that ultimate regen, he has a super duper high uptime on the corrosive armor ultimate. That ultimate, if you never played a DK, or if you're not familiar with that ultimate, corrosive armor is the one where the DK turns all green, and then they basically like can't die while it's active. They take like hardly any damage at all, and then they have 100% penetration against you during that time as well. So you can hardly scratch them, and you're basically naked fighting against them. It's extremely powerful ultimate.
Yeah.
So he was estimating maybe like a 90% uptime with corrosive armor, where he just like lives in that thing all the time.
Which is just insane to think about.
Yeah. So like most of the time you can hardly lay any damage into him at all, and he has all the damage in the world against you.
I'm laughing at Uncle Sam's comment. He's saying pay to win.
Pay to win. I mean, yeah, kind of. You pay $40 for the expansion, you can have Oakensoul and just make your corrosive Oaken DK and have fun. Totally. So yeah, the Dragon Knights using this thing are absolutely brutal, and the ones that I've seen that are the most ferocious are the ones using corrosive armor. I think even using Leap as your ultimate would be pretty good too. You'd be getting that thing frequently.
Yeah, and if you could use the defensive one where you're still doing a lot of damage, and you almost would be near impossible to kill.
You have that big shield. Yep. Totally. Absolutely. So DKs, they were nerfed this patch, but it's like, were they? Because they're still like absolutely on top. Nightblades as well, they're benefiting big time from Oakensoul. I think it's largely from that major force giving you a lot of extra crit damage, and Nightblades have guaranteed crit out of stealth. This is the first time in a long time, in literally years, that I'm getting straight one-shot by Nightblades. I'm talking like one single global cooldown, and I'm dead.
That's over.
And I'm like, I'm on a character with like 31k health. I'm using Gaze of Sithis. I'm not super squishy, but it's just like a heavy attack into an end cap with the Kalurian's Legacy proc with that guaranteed crit with major force. They probably have minor force as well, plus Nightblades just have extra crit damage anyway. It's just an instant lights out. And if it doesn't kill you right away, they do a quick spin to win after that, and then it's a lights out. Grizzly watched Fang Rush this weekend. All they could talk about was corrosive Oakensoul. Yeah, I mean, that's the hotness. It really is. Stamsorks are having an awesome time in the meta right now. I think it's really awesome to see StamSorks doing so well. You're seeing quite a few of them, and what I think is really cool is that there are really a number of viable StamSork builds. I feel like anytime I see a StamSork, it's not the same build as the last one that I saw. You know, they're all kind of slightly different setups, but they're all totally viable, totally doing really well.
Have you been hopping on with yours?
A little bit. Since they're kind of the hotness, you know, I kind of tend to shy away from that. But
Yep.
But yeah, it's still super duper fun. But Bowsorks seem to be kind of the thing that are pretty popular for StamSorks, and they're doing very, very well. But in general, man, and it's kind of different from like the last time that StamSorks were doing well, because that was during a proc meta, and there were just certain proc sets that worked particularly well in StamSorks, and that was really the only reason they were doing well then. That was like a year ago. Now it's the class themselves, you know, and I really like to see that. And they have lots of class identity. They're straight up a sorcerer, you know, with all this stamina and athleticism and all of that. What's really interesting about that, though, is MagSorks. I can't believe I'm saying this, but MagSorks kind of suck right now.
I don't know the last time I saw a MagSork.
I see them, but honestly, like if I'm in a BG and I see a MagSork, I go after them because it's like one of the easiest kills you can do. King says, unless you're Maggio, yeah, he's really good. But man, I don't see a ton of great MagSorks. I feel like they're kind of like near the bottom of the tier list. Like if we were going to rank everything in order from 1 to 12, I feel like they'd be near the bottom. And it's interesting to see that inverted. You know, it used to kind of be the opposite. MagSorks were like number 1 and StamSorks were kind of lower down the list. And it's kind of the opposite now. That's kind of interesting. I've seen some people talk about, as like a result of this hybridization situation, it kind of presents this difficult balancing problems for StamSorks versus MagSorks, because now we're in a situation where, say we want to buff MagSorks, well, you're also going to be buffing StamSorks, you know, or if you want to nerf StamSorks, you're also going to be nerfing MagSorks, you know, so it's like that creates a difficult problem there on if you want to bring one up or bring the other down, it's going to affect the other no matter what you do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, I like to see StamSorks doing well. They're one of my favorite specs to play, so they're doing really well.
They're the one we always talk about. If StamSorks are good, usually the rest of the classes are falling into line where PvP's feeling pretty good.
Mm-hmm. And really not just bow sorks, but really bow builds, I feel like have become super popular. I've seen like bow DKs, bow blades. I've even seen some like bow Templar builds, you know, like it just seems like bow builds in general are kind of coming up in prominence and doing pretty well. And I think that's pretty cool. It's not just snipers, you know, they're just kind of like ranged builds.
Need more of those point blank snipe bow builds out there.
I don't see a lot of those. Not enough. Not enough of them. We got to get your bear claw.
Oh yeah.
Point blank snipe build. Templars are kind of an interesting thing. I feel like Templar as a class is kind of patch proof. You know, like I don't know. I feel like I'm still seeing a good amount of Templars. They're not necessarily dominating the meta, but they haven't like disappeared. They're just like always good. Templars just always solid.
Yeah.
And they do really well with Oakensoul. Our buddy Kingnar in chat has a great Oakensoul Templar. But even just like a normal double bar Templar, always good. They have great offense, great defense.
They just kind of have. I just feel like the Templar kind of has the most complete kit. Like it's not. I wouldn't say it's like the best kit, but it's just the most complete. Like they have class abilities for everything you need. Like Templar's the only like I feel like that you could just use all class abilities. You don't need anything else.
Yeah, just kind of, it almost seems like it doesn't really matter what's going on in the meta. The Templar is always going to be good. I can't remember a patch ever where Templar was bad. So they're doing well. Wardens, I do not see Wardens hardly at all, unless they're a healer. Sure. Just don't see a lot of Wardens. Anyway.
Poor Wardens.
I still maintain that Wardens are good. They're just unpopular. There's a particular player. I haven't asked for permission to use their name, so I won't say their name, but there is a particular player that I see on a Stam Warden that absolutely destroys everyone in his path. And I take that as proof that Wardens are good, or they can be at least. They're just not very popular. I kind of have a feeling that anyone who might be playing a Warden is probably just playing a Necro instead, because they have a lot in common, but Necro is just kind of cooler, you know.
It's newer.
Yeah, and like that aesthetic. I feel like that the Necro aesthetic probably appeals to more people. Uncle Sam says, Necro! Necromanes, unite! Anyway, that's kind of what's going on in PvP. At least what I've been observing over the last few weeks. Let's talk about the builds we've been playing with. So, I've mostly been playing with my MagCro. I'm trying to kind of dial in this my MagCro healer, Despair. I'm not sure if I'm like totally locked in on this build or not, but I have been enjoying it. I'm using, of course, Wretched Vitality on the body, Sithis Helm, One Piece Magma Incarnate, Kin Marcher on the front bar with a charged Frost Staff, and then the Maelstrom Resto on the back bar. Pretty basic build. And I've tried out a few different things, but that's just kind of what feels good, you know? It's just like, it's not necessarily like super fancy or OP or anything, but it feels good to play. I have all the stats I need. I kind of always have options no matter what the situation. I've been enjoying it quite a bit. I just kind of spam Wall of Frost and the Remote Totem everywhere I go, and otherwise keep my hots up and focus heal when I need to.
That usually works out well.
yeah, it does. It's been pretty fun. I was trying for a little while to make my MagCro a bit more offensive focused. I've been kind of doing this thing lately where I'm making all my builds kind of well-rounded, right? They have good offense, they have good defense, and they kind of can handle any situation no matter what's going on. So I was doing that with my MagCro for a little while, and it was working fine, but I kind of had a hard time sticking with it because I was like, well, then what's the difference between my MagCro and my Bowcrow, my Stamina Necromancer? Because they're both ranged builds. They have similar offensive capabilities. They have similar defensive capabilities. Now with the hybridization meta that we're in, my StamCrow is a very good healer as well.
Yeah. Well, the Mender with him is a
the
big
Mender
part of that.
and the resistant flesh burst heal.
Yeah,
I mean, it's very
good
as well.
On a stamina build is pretty great.
And he's using Wretched Vitality as well, so he can sustain those abilities pretty easily. So I kind of had to ask myself, what can my MagCro offer that my Bowcrow can't? And I think really the answer is my MagCrow has a bit more support to offer, a lot more crowd control and AoE. So I kind of went back to just making her a healer and a support build and really focus on crowd control. And that's what she has to offer that I can't really do with my StamCrow. And that just kind of takes me back to what we've been talking about. Like, now that we're in this hybrid situation, what is to become of my Magicka builds? And, you know, they're probably just all going to be healers, you know? Because otherwise, why wouldn't I just play with the stamina counterpart? They can do everything that they can do,
absolutely, but
with better offense.
Well, and the interesting part is I feel like your MagCrow still can offer support that is important with the crowd control and that kind of stuff, but you know, like your Mag Warden, for example, I feel like that it's as hard a time as ever for your Mag Warden to come into a match and be effective, just because it's not going to have crowd control. You know, it really focuses on high heals, but if the team's already got enough heals, you're almost, you know, it's kind of at this point where that could be a detriment to the team if you're not giving something other than heals, whether it's crowd control or a whole lot of buffs or, you know, things like that. And so it's a tricky time for Magicka characters right now, because you really kind of have to, if you're going to go support, you really kind of have to you got to fill in other areas.
Yeah, and it kind of harkens back to the old Malakath like proc meta, where we had a similar conversation back then, where my Warden is a more powerful healer, but my Necro with all the crowd control is better because you can kind of stop enemies in their tracks. You know, there's so much damage that out healing it is difficult, but if you can kind of provide crowd control and kind of interrupt that damage somehow, that just tends to be more effective. My Warden is an amazing healer, and if I have a well-optimized team and everyone on the team is kind of, pretty good players and they do a lot of damage, then in that case my Warden is the superior healer.
Yeah.
But my MagCro kind of doesn't care who's on the team. We're going to power through and have a good time regardless. I do like my Warden quite a bit. I'll probably talk about her on the next episode. Her build hasn't changed in several patches, and I don't see any reason to change it anytime soon. It's a very good build. But anyway, that's pretty much just MagCro. That's all I've been playing with, and it's been good. I definitely recommend that setup. It's been working well for me. Wretched Vitality, Gaze of Sithis, One Piece Magma, Kin Marcher on the front bar with a Charged Frost Staff, Maelstrom Resto on the back bar. That's been working well for me. I don't know if it's totally locked in, but I'll probably stick with it for now because I just like it. What about you, man? What have you been playing with?
I'm playing the old Need for Mead. I think one of my top named characters in your opinion. The old Need for Mead, my StamPlar.
That's an amazing name for a Nord, of course. So
of course,
yeah,
of course. So I actually just recently started this build. Probably kind of started getting it working. We started talking about it probably in the last week or so. We were doing some BGs, and I hopped on the StamPlar, and then kind of saw the opportunity and kind of started piecing it together. But the build is 5-piece Dagon Dominion, 5-piece Deadly Strike, the Gaze of Sithis Helm, and then the Vatishran two-handed back bar with the Swift jewelry pieces for the speed. And we've talked about this, and I know you've talked about it in length. Is that Gaze of Sithis with that Swift jewelry?
It's nice.
It's a nice little setup.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean I've been really happy with the build. You are the one that had mentioned that that Dagon's Dominion is increases your weapon damage for AoE, and we found out that does actually in fact buff my Breath of Life as well. And we were just talking about StamPlar. They kind of have everything. I've got great heals, really good damage, really good AoE damage with the jabs. The actual weapon damage ramps up quite a bit. With the back bar Vatishran two-hander, that gets going. The Dagon Dominion with the Deadly Strike,
it's a lot of damage.
Gets going. And this character kind of really can kind of eat into groups. It'll actually do effective damage, and it's very survivable. It's very fast, really good heals, extended ritual, and so I've been really happy with kind of how this build has been going.
I love how Dagon
versatile.
I love how Dagon applies to basically everything, right? Like your entire offense,
all the StamPlar abilities. Yep.
And yeah, we weren't sure about Breath of Life because it seems like a single target ability, but actually it does apply. It counts as an AOE, and so Dagon applies to that as well. That's really cool. And of course, your cleansing ritual and your ultimate and all that.
Yeah, and I really love the build because it really does kind of feel like it has everything I need. Jabs. We talked about jabs. We could talk about jabs till the end of days. Just crazy high damage, AoE. I use the toppling charge, so it's got a good gap closer. Breath of Life, extended ritual. I have vigor on there as well, so the heals are fantastic. It's good personal heals. It's good group heals when I need that to happen. And it's I have repentance on there, so I have really good recovery when I need to.
I miss repentance. I had to take it off of my StamPlar, but man, I miss it.
Yeah, it's just great. It's just kind of, and obviously Power of the Light, it really feels like I kind of have everything that I need for each situation. I kind of feel like I have the full toolkit.
That's how I feel about my StamPlar, dude. She's just perfect.
I don't need anything else, but, and when you get that Swift jewelry on there, you've got the speed along with it. We talk about the Gaze of Sithis and Swift jewelry combo, and it's huge. I mean, with that speed, and once you kind of learn to play that playstyle with the heals, you really kind of get to a point where you're like, I don't really need the block anymore. Mm-hmm. Like I play around where I play around the blocking. I don't need that.
If you're investing in speed, you're making the decision not to block. In my mind,
exactly.
Because if you're wanting to block, you'd be putting protective jewelry instead or
exactly.
whatever.
Yeah, you kind of have to. It's kind of like strategic strikes, right? You have to kind of pinpoint. You jump in there, throw all your combo out there, see where everybody's damage is, and if it's not where you want it to be, then you pull out, kind of reset, and then just kind of continue strategic strikes. And then one of those times you go in there with the damage, you'll see the low damage, and then you just kind of finish them off, and then you kind of peel back off again, and it's a really fun character right now, and it's working out really well. I've been excited.
Super cool looking character too.
I've worked a lot on the aesthetics of old Need for Mead. It's
you still have the antlers.
Yes.
Okay.
I've stuck with the antlers. No change. No need to worry.
Good.
Sticking with the antlers is just part of the build. He's probably set. I probably won't make any changes to this character. It's actually been really fun to do, to figure out the emotes and collectibles for this character now with the new wheel. There's pretty good ones.
Yeah, I bet he has fun with those emotes because he's a wild looking dude.
Oh yeah, he's got the drunk personality, of course. Need for mead. I mean, come on.
Yeah, he needs that mead.
Yeah, he needs the mead.
Speaking of which, shout out to Grizzly Khan who brewed some mead in real life. Showed us a picture of his stash. Even invited us down to drink some. We can't make it down with gas prices the way they are right now, but we will at some point and drink some of that mead.
Grizzly Khan living that Nord life.
Yeah, that's cool. It looked good.
We're gonna start a new scrolling thing. Grizzly Khan, the shout out Grizzly Khan, the Nord of the month.
Nord of the month. Oh, you'd love that.
Ket's totally behind it.
I'm on board. You'll have to host this one though.
Yeah.
I'll just show up.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Is there anything else? Is that all you got?
That's pretty much it. I will say that a lot of this build kind of came together. I was really playing Lord of Nords, who was actually had the Dagon set, and then
that's your Stam DK.
That's my Stam DK. Realized he kind of needs some changes, and then this build kind of worked better with that. And really, my Stam DK, he's gonna get that Oakensoul. I've got two characters kind of lined up with that Oakensoul. It will be my Stam DK and old Bearclaw the Nord himself, my Stamina Warden.
Nice.
I think I'm gonna have some fun situations with my Stamina Warden build with Bearclaw.
What ultimate are you going to use on the DK?
I think I'm gonna try. It's hard not to go with the 90% uptime on the corrosive, so that's a little hard not to pick. But I really, old Lord of Nords himself, old Lord of Leaping, I really want to see if I can just leap all over this stinking place.
Just make Leap your spammable?
Yeah, just if I can get Leap just going crazy, I really want to see what that uptime could be. I actually have a lot of the pieces from the build that I used to kind of run where he was even more ultimate generating than he is now.
Put Champion of the Hiss back on.
Well, so the idea is kind of Oakensoul with Champion of the Hiss.
Yeah.
And then maybe fit Potentates back on the build.
Bloodspawn.
With the Bloodspawn.
Yeah.
And then I have decisive pieces with the Potentates, and so I don't know. We'll play around, see what that ultimate's going.
I wonder if you could just ignore sustain completely in that case and just let your ultimate.
I mean, if I'm just leaping all over the place, like it might not matter much.
Just rely on that battle roar passive.
Yeah. So that could be fun. That could be pretty fun.
I keep trying to think of what I want to use Oakensoul for. I haven't farmed for it yet. I haven't gotten a single lead, but I'm trying to think of I need to get it. I need to use it on something, but I don't know what yet. Scrollingpodcast@gmail.com. If you have any suggestions, what should I use for for my Oakensoul build? Well, I think that's about all we got. Shout out to Kingnar, Grizzly Khan, Dr. Professor, Uncle Sam, and Crimson for being in the chat.
Yeah, we had a full party.
Quite a party tonight. Thank you all so much for coming out. It makes us feel so special. Thank you so much.
Makes the episode a lot more fun, for sure.
It does. It's cool. I like having a little bit of an audience here. So thank you so much, guys. If you guys want to send us an email, send us emails at scrollingpodcast@gmail.com. If you have any questions or suggestions for the show, anything you want to hear us talk about, you can just say hello, tell us a joke, whatever you want, scrollingpodcast@gmail.com. We do have a guild. On PCNA, it is called Stoon's Goons, best named guild on the server.
Absolutely.
And the official guild of the Scrollin' Podcast. If you'd like to join, send us an email at scrollandpodcast@gmail.com. If your guild roster is full, no big deal. We can get you in the Discord. That's really the true home of the guild anyway. Scrollandpodcast@gmail.com will send you a Discord invite. That's where the action's happening. A pretty active server. In my opinion, I was just talking about this the other night I think it was with Dr. Professor, I want to say. It's just the right amount of activity on our Discord server. It's active. There's stuff going on in there, but it's not like overwhelming. You can just kind of check in a few times a week, see what's been going on, and it's
like
not going to take all your time.
You're not going to look at it and miss 7 conversations. Like, you can keep up with it. You can keep up with the chat.
Yeah, and it's just like a nice, tight little group of people that are all real chill, really cool. I really like the vibe of our Discord server. So hit us up, scrollandpodcast@gmail.com. We'll get you in there. Am I forgetting anything?
I was going to say, we got to go back to asking people about how they make a sandwich. That was really a spicy topic there for me.
Send us your sandwich. How do you make your sandwich? I don't know. Anyway, thank you very much for listening. I think we're going to get out of here now. We'll see you next time.